We have acid, we have alkaline, and in the middle we've got neutral. But in a cellular pH of 5.5, this is where disease thrives, especially yeasts, funguses, and cancer.
So Barbara O'Neill shares with us that a slightly change in pH causes cancer. Cancer loves certain types of foods.
Cancer loves acid. Cancer also loves no oxygen. The other thing cancer loves is sugar. And so when people come to us wanting help to conquer cancer, you see what we do? We suggest a diet that's highly alkalizing. We suggest ways to oxygenate the body, and we also greatly eliminate the glucose, the sugars going into the body.
So, we'll dive into the insights of renowned health educator Barbara O'Neill as she reveals the hidden dangers of acid-forming foods and their link to cancer. First, acid-forming food is meat.
Meat. This explains why Dr. Colin Campbell found he could turn cancer cells on and off like a switch by the amount of meat and dairy products he was giving the rats.
According to Barbara O'Neill, meat is considered an acid-forming food due to its high content of protein and certain minerals like phosphorus and sulfur, which produce acids when metabolized by the body. These acids can lower the body's pH, creating an acidic environment where diseases, including cancer, can thrive. O'Neill explains that cancer cells particularly favor acidic conditions, as well as environments with low oxygen and high sugar levels. By consuming large amounts of meat, one can contribute to an overall acidic state in the body, potentially increasing the risk of cancer development. Second food on our list is sugar.
Refined sugar, it's very acid forming.
Barbara O'Neill explains that while sugar chemically neutral in its pure form, when metabolized by the body, it becomes acid forming. The breakdown of sugar leads to the production of acids like acetic, lactic, and uric acid, which lower the body's pH and create an acidic environment. This acidic environment is conducive to the growth and proliferation of cancer cells, as they thrive in low pH, low oxygen, and high sugar conditions. Next up is hybridized wheat.
Hybridized wheat. The hybridization of the wheat created a lot more of the acid-forming minerals. The original wheat that God made is called Enkenhorn, or some call it just Enkhorn. And that original wheat had a very fragile protein or gluten structure. It is not sure when, but they estimate a couple of 1,000 years ago, Enkenhorn did a wild hybrid with a field grass and came up with the Emma strain of wheat. Its structure, its protein or gluten structure is not as fragile, but it's still fairly fragile. And in the 1950s, it was the Emma strain of wheat that was put through intensive crossbreeding. And it came up with the hybridized wheat that we know today. That hybridization of the wheat created an incredibly complex gluten or protein structure. Today we're looking at how the hybridization process changed the gluten or the protein structure, and it's almost only a cast iron gut that can break down that very complex protein or gluten structure. That explains why so many people are gluten intolerant today. By the 1990s, every pasta, every pizza, every biscuit, cake, cookie, donut, cereal, bread, it's all made out of the hybridized wheat. You see, the farmers love it, and I don't blame them for loving it because they get 6 times more grain per acre. It was zoomed through to help with the starvation crisis in the world, and safety studies were never done. This explains the gluten intolerance that we see today. The 2 most common symptoms of a gluten intolerance is brain fog and bloating.
Barbara O'Neill suggests that hybridized wheat, developed through extensive crossbreeding, has a complex gluten structure that is difficult for many people to digest. This indigestibility can lead to inflammation and irritation in the gut, which may contribute to an acidic environment in the body. O'Neill advocates for choosing ancient grains like spelt or comet, which have simpler gluten structures and are less likely to contribute to acidity and cancer risk. Fourth on our list is caffeine.
All your caffeine foods and drinks have an acid effect. And of course, caffeine usually comes hand in hand with the sugar, which certainly ups it. And remember our 2.6 Coca-Cola, that's a combination of the caffeine and the sugar. Did you know that Coca-Cola is called Coca-Cola because I think it was early part of the 20th century they put cocaine in it and they went over to caffeine, which is just as dangerous.
Regular consumption of caffeine can contribute to unfavorable environment, potentially supporting the growth and spread of cancer. Additionally, caffeine can stress the adrenal glands, further disrupting the body's balance and immune response. O'Neill recommends reducing or eliminating caffeine intake to help maintain a more alkaline environment, which is less conducive to cancer development. Next up is aged cheese.
Aged cheese. What's the blue in the blue vein cheese? The blue in the blue vein cheese is mold. So the only cheeses that don't sit under that category, the cheeses that have probably a pH of 7 would be your fresh.
Barbara O'Neill discusses that dairy products, particularly aged cheese and milk, are acid-forming foods that can lower the body's pH, contributing to an acidic internal environment. This acidic environment is ideal for the growth and proliferation of cancer cells, which thrive in low pH conditions. Additionally, the high protein content in dairy, particularly casein, can be difficult to digest and may lead to inflammation in the gut. This inflammation further exacerbates acidity in the body. Furthermore, dairy products often contain hormones and antibiotics from conventional farming practices, which can disrupt the body's hormonal balance and immune function, potentially increasing the risk of cancer. Next on the list is alcohol.
Alcohol is not a food, but it creates an acid environment in the body. Tobacco is not a food, but it also creates an acid environment in the body. Alcohol breaks down in the body to acetaldehyde. And acetaldehyde is a neurotoxin. We don't want a neurotoxin. A neurotoxin is a brain killer.
So should we have to eliminate all acid-forming foods as they are causing cancer? The good news is no.
To maintain the 6.5 environment, you need to be consuming 20% acid-forming foods, 80%, 70 to 80% alkaline-forming foods.
So grains, legumes, and nuts are acid-forming foods, but are very helpful in preventing cancer. Grains.
Your other grains, other than the grains that sit on the alkaline side.
Legumes.
Your other legumes, other than the lima, lentil, and soy.
Nuts.
And all your other nuts, other than the almond and Brazil, have an acid effect.
So we've explored the acid-forming foods to avoid and how to enjoy them in moderation for better health. By making mindful choices, you can maintain a balanced diet and support your well-being. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights on living a healthier life.